How have your political views changed as you've aged? Was a total piece of shit in high school, mostly out of ignorance, I think. I was very apolitical and didn't actually have a cause to support, so I just pretended like I was smarter than everyone else and called myself a realist. Well, then I actually went to university and left my social bubble and realized that other people feel the way they do for a good reason. I became very passionate about public health and LGBT rights when I realized that caring about social issues is actually a good thing. I started out very liberal. Even though I make more and more every year, seeing my friends and family fall behind is making me more liberal, not Joe Biden liberal, like Bernie Sanders. I seem to have pissed off several conservatives who'd me lol. I do want to point out that being liberal does not mean I support tax increases. I think where our tax money goes needs to change though, because we pay a huge for not getting back shit when we actually need it. Was extremely far left liberal. Realized quickly that they were just as bad as the extremist far right. Now I'm happy being center left leaning. I don't agree with war, capitalism, patriarchy, racism, etc. However, I think that the death penalty should be introduced in my country only for the pedos, apists, abusers, animal abusers too, and certain murders. The justice system is beyond a joke. That's just one of the reasons why I'm not on the far left. I grew up religious, so I used to follow whatever I thought my church would have agreed with. Then when I was a young adult I was super left liberal and couldn't accept any other ideas. Now I'm still left liberal, but I'm not unwilling to consider outside opinions like I was before. I think being able to change your mind when given new information is an incredible cool and important thing, and I understand some things are more nuanced than meets the eye. I'm just more jaded about the parties as I age. It seems like the parties morph their views and stances faster than I change my own. I used to love Democrats' staunch stance on First Amendment rights and free speech. I admired Republicans' concern for the deficit and fiscal responsibility. It seems as if neither of the parties consistently cares about these issues anymore. It's turned into members who want to be celebrities or something. I was left growing up. Not hard left, but left enough. In my 30s, I sat in the middle, maybe a tiny little bit right. Now, as I turn 38 in March, both sides have stupid people, and at the end of the day, you really shouldn't identify yourself with either side. They are politicians, not rock stars. They're supposed to work for you, not the other way around. And I'd rather stay out of politics for the rest of my life for the peace. Pretty hardcore leftist that still very much dislikes the right, but questions whether my side lost the plot, at some point. We've stooped so far into the muck with the way we frame our rhetoric, and the corruption at the top can no longer be ignored. I can't pretend I didn't see all those videos of Biden sniffing kids. Something weird is going on, and I can't play dumb about it just because they represent my side. I've always leaned left of center. Within the past 5 years, my stance on gun ownership has pushed me away from the left because I believe in the right to self-defense and owning firearms through the Second Amendment. I still want all sorts of reform, through healthcare, education, economic adjustment, etc., but it'd be nice if Democrats eased up on gun restrictions. They will not work to solve any of our problems. Gone further to the left. I first realized creationism was bullshit, then realized climate change wasn't. Started to wonder what the problem people had with homosexuality exactly. Learned about human evolution and saw humans' greatest strength was altruism, and not rugged individualism. Then the rest fell away and it turned out conservatives just hateful people with a primitive mentality. I used to be middle of the road since I wasn't all that informed. As I learned more, I went slightly left. As I got older and knew where my taxes were going and traveled more, I went way farther left. I think the idea that you'll get more conservative can be true for people who have a strictness or the more fear-based mindset. But also the world has changed a lot and so has conservatism. Conservative in my teens, shifted to left by the time I had graduated high school, but I had now described myself as a mixed bag. I have conservative views on some things, and I hold leftist views on others. I'd probably say I lean left, though, because I align with more liberal ideas than conservative. But some of my conservative views would seem impossible to reconcile to some liberals. I'm more liberal at heart now at 36 than I was at 18. The more I learn about our systems, the more ridiculous shit I see that needs to be corrected because of capitalism. But with age I've realized many of those solutions are impossible in our political landscape. I understand that politics is the art of the possible, so I'm willing to compromise much more than I was when I was younger. More conservative. I'd say I'm moderate now, but my conservative parents say I'm still too liberal. Ultimately that's because both parties have become so extreme that even if you agree with one liberal sentiment, conservatives say no way you're moderate, liberals think you're too conservative. At the end of the day, I am not as liberal as I used to be and have issues with both parties. Started out left of center, now the only reason I don't label myself a communist is because I don't want to be associated with actual internet tanky nutcases, aka Stalinists, Maoists. Anyone who praises anyone's established government is good because they're usually racist dickheads, not actual leftists. Edit to clarify, it means I shot over so left that centrism is right wing. Bucking the trend here, but I've become less liberal. Used to consider myself pretty far left, but as time goes on I've just found myself disagreeing more and more with the left and I've shifted to the center. Also, people seem just as fucking unhinged on both ends of the spectrum these days. Every single issue has to be black and white, nuance is a thing of the past. I went from libertarian to conservative. I used to believe in you do you. The problem is the left now tries to force me to call a man a woman and let men in women's bathrooms sports. I now understand that it is important to lobby for your values and stop bad ideas before they begin by exposing the bad ideas and calling them out, then voting against them. I was more liberal as a youth, became more conservative in my late 20s 40s and now trending again towards more liberal in my mid-50s. I thoroughly bought into if you weren't a socialist before 30, you had no heart, if you weren't a capitalist after 30, you have no brain. But, the last few years of life experience has tempered that a bit for me. When people say you get more conservative as you age, what they mean is that my political views never progressed since I was young. Societal values tend to become increasingly progressive over time, so if you never adjust your viewpoint or grow with the times, then relatively speaking, you will be more conservative relative to society's standard. Growing up I was pretty far left of center. Since my late teens I've been shifting right. Where I am now is pretty politically centered by the standards of my youth. But by current standards I guess I'd be considered on the right. Basically I believe in personal and individual responsibility, which apparently makes me Hitler by Reddit standards. I grew up in a very conservative household, so when I was a kid Obama bad, Tea Party good was what I knew. Became very liberal in my teens and college years as I broke out of that and started thinking for myself. Now in my mid-20s I've drifted back to the center on some things but definitely lean left on most issues. Spent most of my life in a left-leaning political stance. Now, with age and being in the US, I get the distinct pleasure of taking my life experience and becoming politically homeless. All because I can sensibly see how more than one thing can be true at the same time, and in reality, both sides fucking suck. They haven't. I still don't vote and still don't care who's in power. Everyone is an asshole and you're never going to be able to fully trust any one of them. Plus Canadian politics are boring as fuck. At the very least we don't have geriatrics trying to remember their first name deciding the country's fate. I started close to Berkeley left, but now I'm much more moderate and I don't really care. I accept that other people will have differing opinions and I'm too busy working on my own life to worry about them. I will say though, climate change is something we should definitely come together on. When I was younger I was way more liberal. Now that I'm 50 I have a much broader worldview and am very much a moderate. I think they are a good idea on either side of the political fence, but because neither side is willing to give any ground they just keep seesawing back and forth. I used to think that both sides wanted pretty much the same things, but just differed in how to approach it, what was most important, etc. I don't believe that at all anymore. I think we have irreconcilable differences. I don't even want to find common ground anymore. Used to be a Democrat. With age, realize both parties in USA are corrupt and paid for by corporate sponsorship. Nothing in USA can be changed with Citizens United, Electoral College, and any other rule that was put into place when owning a human was alright. My teens, I was influenced by the stupid conservative town I was in. My 20s, I went extremely left-wing. Now I'm in my 30s, and I've found myself settling in the left of center. Both sides are so fucking selfish, and neither cares at all about austerity. Yes, I was in the military and quite conservative when I was younger. Seeing the world, growing up, and meeting people from outside the small town I grew up in, not to mention watching the way the GOP actually treats veterans, have made me much more liberal. Not much, I never really voted by party completely, but more so on how I felt about the candidate personally. I voted for Obama the first time, not the second. I voted for Trump, once the second time. 2024 remains open for me to anyone but Joe or Donald. Honestly, I've gotten a bit more leftist on social issues. Not much has changed on economic issues. Unfortunately, the right in my country USA has taken a marked shift towards Christian authoritarianism, so I vote left even though I don't really like it. The only thing that changed is that I used to think there were good people trying to keep evil from happening, then I learned more about history and realized it's just people trying to get re-elected, and sometimes they do a good thing for the optics. If this thread teaches you anything, it's that the US needs to stop with all the anti-third party tactics, and actually give something other than Democrat or Republican a go. Personal opinion: both parties need to die and get replaced. I've become more hopeless regarding my country's politics. Both parties are horrible and it physically hurts. As I love my country and believe it could be great, but now I'm just trying to figure out if I'll survive the next few years. Yup. Grew up with everyone I ever interacted with Republican and just blindly agreed with it. Now I can't stand any party. I will not vote for a party who purposely votes against the other just to oppose them when it hurts the people. I used to be a Republican, but I've shifted to the left around 5-ish years ago. It was a gradual shift that took a few years to change. Here I am now a Democrat, something I never expected to become, and I don't mean in a bad way. I went from far left, to center right as I went from a teenager to mid-30s. This is Reddit though, so I'm sure anyone who doesn't admit to becoming more left-wing will be downvoted by all the young people here. Started off quite centrist, if not a little socially conservative, i.e. thought anything but straight was a sin, but have become more fiscally Keynesian and socially liberal as I've gotten older and traveled the world. Yes and no. I've always been opposed to centralization of power, but as I've aged I've grown more conservative and see that the live and let live approach is folly. Fighting for a culture and morality matters.